Welcome to the Starting Over podcast. I am your host, Lisa Yvette. This walk with God is an ongoing journey. And what I've come to find out is throughout this journey, there are moments when you are humbled to find out that just when you think you've mastered it, you haven't, and you have to start over. The good thing is God is in the midst of that start over. In this podcast, there's just one common theme: starting over. It's not science, but it is math. God's way plus our obedience equals starting over with kingdom purpose. There are so many ways in life that we have to start over. The one thing we know is that God is intentional in our start overs. Our omniscient, all-knowing God knew we would need a few go-rounds before we actually surrendered to his transformative power. So he made his mercies new every day, and we need them. If we can remember that the start overs are purposed with his mercies attached, it will help us. We'll be more inclined to let go of the things that we cling to so desperately and instead cling to God and his way. Join the conversation in the comments. Send your questions via DM. We'll do our best to answer them online. And subscribe to this podcast. If you like what you hear, share. And if you don't, well, starting over is sometimes just knowing that everything is not for you. Hey, so today is February 5th. At the start of this new month, I just want to encourage you to keep your eyes on Christ. There's a lot going on right now. You're getting a lot of information. Weigh the information you're getting, no matter who is saying it. Then keep your eyes on Christ. Put your eyes back on Christ. If you're not sure how, go read the Gospels. Inspect the life of Jesus and the people who walked alongside him, and even the people who betrayed him. Read what he praised and what he condemned, right? We're following people who call themselves Christians, and we're doing everything except for what Jesus did, right? We're doing everything except for what Christ did, right? Why follow Christ and call ourselves Christians and not do what Christ did? Remember his promises and pray for the world and our leaders, our political leaders, our church leaders. Pray for our industry leaders. Pray for our community leaders. And lastly, love God and love your neighbor. If you don't know how to do that, go back to those Gospels, right? Go back to that word. Go see how Jesus did things. You know what he said. Stop trying to act like you don't. You're watching the Starting Over podcast with Lisa Yvette. Now, starting over. So, starting over is hard. Like, we're going to say this every week because it is, right? Starting over is hard. Even with God in the midst of it, it's hard. It's why we stay in a relationship even after God is set to let it go, right? We can see all the warning signs, all the red flags, as we call them, and still stay there, right? We may not even see them, but we hear God say to go. And the idea of starting over when you think you've got what you want in your hands is just too much, right? It seems like you got this close, and then God said no, and then now what, right? Now you're back to square one. But that's why we don't leave, because starting over is hard. Can we be honest, church people? Starting over is hard. That's why we don't leave when God says to leave, right? Because we've gotten used to everybody. We've built a community, right? It's why we know that there's abuse happening in the church and be quiet, because we belong somewhere, and starting over in a new community is hard. What we don't understand sometimes is God is sending us to a new place, sometimes to get you away from danger, right? Sometimes it's because there's something that you need to learn over at that new place, right? And sometimes there's a gift that you're bringing to that new place, but you won't know that because you won't go when he says to go, right? Because starting over is hard. We love our communities. We love the people who we've bonded with over the years. It's not easy, but it's doable. The thing is, routine is a comfort, right? That's the other side of it. Routine is a comfort, right? What we can plan out and execute, and we know the expected outcome, that's comforting, right? Routine is a comfort. It feels good. It's a safe space. But starting over smashes that comfort into little tiny ugly confetti bits. It lands in your memory bank, right? Every time you think about doing something that God said, you remember the last time you did what God said and things didn't go well, right? Come on. If you follow God, right? If you have followed God long enough, you know that there's things that He's told you to do, and you've expected a certain outcome only to be disappointed or let down or hurt, right? Those are the ugly confetti bits, and they get in the way. I don't want to feel that discomfort again. I remember those are the confetti. That's the confetti. We forget that in the end there was a victory, a new gift, right? A new location, even, right? A new location, a testimony, a new location to serve in. We forget about those things. They're not the bright, flashy things. Everybody thinks that, I obey and God got me a house. I obey and I got a new car. I obeyed and I went to the place that God sent me and I got a husband. And there's obedience that doesn't have those big things attached to them, right? There's obedience that changes you on the inside. A lot of times when we go to God with our issues and He starts to tell us things, they don't make sense at first. When you start seeing what falls away from that obedience, yeah, that's how we start over and we don't even know it. Those are the start overs that we don't even know about right away. But that's why obedience is important, right? That's why the starting over, that's how starting over actually takes root, that obedience. In Exodus, starting over had the Israelites in a tizzy, right? They were in trouble with God all the time because for them, they just knew they didn't have their comforts, right? Remember we talked about those comforts standing in the way of starting over and those routines? They had routines as slaves, but they could not let that go. They couldn't do it. They just, when they got hungry, they said, oh, we wish we were back in Egypt. What? And the reason why they were always in trouble with God is because they would not obey. We just talked about, the key to starting over is obedience, right? Starting over with God. What God does with us, and He wants to transform us, it starts with obedience. Can I tell you a story? Okay, good. So many years back, right, I wanted to be a screenwriter, right? I had aspirations of writing movies. I would go online and I would find sample scripts, right? I didn't care what they were about, but I would just find sample scripts and I would look at the format. And I just basically taught myself how to write scripts. After that, I took classes, right? And I started writing my own scripts, right? And I went out into writing books. But overall, I wanted to write movies. My movie was going to be in lights and I was going to be chilling behind the scenes, just collecting money. So after, I've written all these scripts and everything, and I had gone to an event with a friend, and I ended up running into this movie producer who I had worked with on a writing project, and he had liked my writing, and he invited me to come back and meet his writing team, and he had a dinner, and we all went, and it was great. And one Sunday, I was in prayer, and I was thanking God, for this opportunity, and God said, no, no. He told me, put that down. He said no, and I was devastated, right? I don't know about you, but there are people who know what they're going to do with their whole lives, right? People who they start out and they just know, I'm going to be an accountant and I'm going to study this. I'm going to be a teacher and that's going to be what I'm going to do. I'm going to, they just know. And I didn't know. I was floating all over the place. But when I got a hold of writing, that's when I knew I'm going to do something with this. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew I was going to do something with that writing. It was the writing that stuck. And I was hurt. I mean, I don't know how to put it any other way. I was hurt. I found this writing and I'm gonna, I finally got this gift. How could you take it from me? He was like, girl, like if you don't calm down. He was like, no, I want you to write and to preach. And then there was more confusion and panic because preach. No, no, no. I am a writer, right? I know how to write. I could write anything. I was writing since I was a kid. Like me and my friends, when we were young and growing, we would trade letters back and forth between classes, right? Like when texting came, oh, forget it. Like I could text for hours. Like writing is my joy. And so I thought God was saying, you're not going to do this. And he was like, no, you're going to write and preach. So I was concerned. The right part, okay, but preach. No. For me, starting over was like a reset, right? He, in essence, was telling me who I was, right? So he affirmed that I was a writer, but he affirmed that I had a call to preach, right? Once you have a clear purpose ahead of you, it's easier to make the shift, right? And I also, let me say this, um, during the time when God was speaking to me about this movie writing and everything. But during this time when He had redirected me, I was praying daily. Like I was intentionally praying daily. Like there was not a day that passed that I was not sitting down with my Bible and reading and praying. And I mean, it didn't matter what I did outside. When I got back in my house every day, because I was so excited to get back to the Word, and I know that that was God, right? But the other thing is, my mother had given me this book. Now, I had not been a Catholic for years, and she gave me this book by this Catholic woman who, it was called the Miracle Hour. It had, you pray, you worshiped first. So it starts off, bless you, Jesus. You are the King of Kings. You are the Lord of Lords. You are Alpha and Omega. This reshaped the way I was praying because my prayers were always selfish. God, if you would let me, or God, when can this happen? Or God, I want a husband, or God, I need a new car, God, blah, blah. But this book taught me how to pray, right? It started with worship, and then there was repentance, and I don't remember the order right now, but worship, and there was repentance, and there was forgiveness, for yourself and for others, right? It was spiritual warfare, and it was all these things that I never even knew were part of the package, right? So I say that to say, starting over, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. But when God says no, I think that we have to understand that there is a repurposing going on, right? I was out here, I was writing, I was going into the world. I promise you. And God was like, hold on, sis, this way, right? This way, my way. A lot of times we can't see new things in our lives because we don't want God to do a repurposing, right? If you think about repurposing, so you have an old rain boot and it's your favorite rain boot and it's colorful and it's so cute and you can't use it anymore for whatever reason. So instead of throwing it out, you put dirt on the inside and you plant seeds and you put it out in the backyard and it grows beautiful plants out of it, right? This is what God does with us when He repurposes us, right? When He pulls us in and He changes our course, it's a repurposing for the kingdom. So when He says no, like we have to remember that that no has a purpose behind it, right? It's not punishment. It's not, because you did something bad in the fifth grade. Like it's not that. There was something I really wanted to do, and God said no. And years later, I ran into someone and they made a comment to me, and I was like, oh, there's protection in that no. Maybe there's something that you were going to go into and mess up. So the no is the no has purpose, right? If we believe that Jesus died on the cross for us and we are redeemed, right? That means we've been given back value. What purpose is there to be out in the world and not serving Him, right? We can gain the whole world and lose our soul. Like that's the scripture, right? What good is that, right? And we forget because we are watching everybody live these fantastic lives. And you can live a fantastic life following Christ. What's worth it if we're saved and work in the wrong capacity, right? That means that whatever we're supposed to be doing is not getting done, right? God has to find someone else to fill it in because don't think it won't get done. But if you have a purpose, this is why people walk around in this world aimlessly because they really don't have purpose. They ask, what's my purpose? If you're looking for purpose right now, I would immediately send you to Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all its righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. God is looking to find out your readiness, right? You think God doesn't know the difference between when we come around to get something or when we come around to really get to know Him? right? He knows. He knows us. He created us. He said, before I knit you together in your mother's womb, I knew you. We're silly when we think we could pull a fast one on God. Let me just go over here and talk to him real quick and finesse him up real quick. And then, so he could just, bless me. So, yeah. So before I ramble on until eternity, that's where we are. So when God says no, what do you do? Got you. I prayed and then I asked questions and I obeyed. But the truth of the matter is the first thing that you do is you obey, right? God requires our obedience. Obedience is better than sacrifice, right? What is that? First Samuel 15. I don't want what you think you can give me after the fact. I want you to do what I say. That's how God operates. Obedience is first. I'm going to give you the recipe that I use because my situation was different because I didn't know how to do what God was telling me. He said, you're going to write and preach. That was so ambiguous to me. I didn't know what it meant. So I obeyed immediately. I obeyed immediately. I started writing, but I didn't really have a direction. I just started writing. As for the preaching, I had to wait on that because I had no idea how that was going to go. The first thing is obedience, right? If he says to let that thing go, you got to let that thing go, right? Are you going to be in pain? Yeah. Yeah. Right. When he told me no, I felt like it was a breakup. I felt like my world was ending because this was a dream for me. I didn't have dreams before that. I just was coasting along, right? All I knew was I wanted to write. And he said no. So I felt like I was back at square one with like just flailing about. But he had purpose for me. And I had to but I had to let it go so that I would be able to go forward, right? The second thing is prayer, right? Prayer from, I will say this, prayer for me has always been my go-to when I was in pain, right? Calling people on the phone after, but I was going to pray, right? Even before, because after I would pray though, there'd be all the distractions. Let me call and see who I'm gonna be outside with, right? That's where I was at. Let me watch a show so I don't have to think about my problem or my issue. To not sit with the pain and really just figure out like, okay, God, what you really got for me? What's really going on here? Right? So first things first is obedience, and the second thing is prayer. In that prayer, you're going to seek God, you seeking his face, because there's no other face you really want to see right then except for his, because you need to get to the bottom of things. The second thing in prayer is say exactly how you feel. Right? I don't know where we got this thing where we were going to just tell God, God, you in control. I trust you in all of this. Yeah, you do think that maybe after the fact, especially when you don't understand, but you gotta tell God you upset. God, I'm so hurt right now. I'm so disappointed. I thought that was going to be it. It was in that moment when I said, God, but I just found the writing. And he was like, I didn't say you wasn't going to write. I said, you ain't writing with him. Right? You gotta get in and really talk to God because God cannot work through someone who's pretending. He's not a pretender. So you come and you, God, I trust you, and then you go out and you don't believe and you speak doubt into everything and you do it because you're lying. You're lying. Okay, God needs you to be upfront with him. He knows. I'm gonna say this again. He knows you. So let's start over. We're now fronting for God. God, I'm mad right now. I remember one time I told God, God, I don't even want to hear you right now. I just need you to just be over there for a second. Because I was angry with him. I was very disappointed. Right? Yeah, he kept talking to me. But, we lie. We lie. And it doesn't do anything for you. It just makes you resentful. Right? And your actions still say that you don't believe. So there's that. Oh, wait a minute. There was in Psalm 13, I'm going to read it to you because this made me laugh. But David was going in. He was so mad. Wait a minute. In Psalm 13, he says, "How long, Lord, will you forget me forever?" He said, "How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts?" Like this man is going through a mental battle. He says, and he said, and day after day have sorrow in my heart. So it's a mental and an emotional battle. Like he's going through it. He said, and then he said, "How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer me." Look what he said, "Look on me and answer me, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes while I was sleeping death." The drama of this. And he says, "And my enemy will say I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall." He said, "These ninjas gonna think that they beat me, and I don't like it." There was another version. I'm gonna read that one because I'm just gonna do too much. But he was so dramatic about this. But he says, wait. He says, he says, "How long must I worry and suffer in broad daylight? How long will my enemy gloat over me? Look at me, answer me, O Lord." He says, "Revive me or else I will die." The third thing I want to get down to in that prayer, right? Because in that prayer, there's the 3 points. The first thing is buckle down in prayer. The second thing is tell him exactly how you feel. The third thing is worship, right? Do you know what worship does? Worship takes that thing that you had on the altar, right? That thing that you were worshiping, it takes whatever your issue is off the altar and puts God back in his rightful place, right? God is to be praised. You worship and you remember who God is, right? And you remember all that he has already done. When you put God in his rightful place, you start to remember, you know what, God, you do come through for me. Right? You saved me. You went to the cross for me. God, I trust you. And at that moment, you could really say, I trust you because you are really zooming in on the fact that this is God. This is not some dude in the street who let you down. This is God, right? This is God on the throne. This is God ahead of you. Like, this is your focus on God. This is seeking God first. When you worship him, he is first. Okay? There's nothing else that is when you worshiping God. Right? So that's the first thing. So first thing is prayer. The second thing you want to do is ask the questions. No, the first thing I said was obedience. The second thing was prayer. The third thing is ask God all the questions. God, why? Why? What are you saving me from? Like I like to talk to God. Like I'd be like, God, so what happened? So why? What was happening? That when God told me I couldn't work on this project, probably a week later, I had a conversation with the movie guy. And he said some things to me that were off-putting, but I just understood right then that we weren't in alignment. The scales came off my eyes. And when you ask God questions, sometimes he answers, right? There are answers. He has answers. God is not this spirit that just wants you in the dark about everything. God reveals things to us all the time. We're not paying attention. He gave me a heads up in saying no because right in that moment, I understood. I mean, I still ain't like it because my dreams were like, flying away. But he gave me a revelation, right? So that's what it is. That's it. It's three things you're going to do when God says no. You're going to obey, right? You're going to buckle down in prayer and you're going to ask questions. Sometimes when we go to God and we say, God, I really thought this was it. He'll give you an answer. He might be really kind with it too. He might say, daughter, I was protecting you. Now, then there's times that he'll say stuff. They won't be mean, but they won't be what we want to hear, right? He might say, you weren't ready, right? It might say, I've given you that, and then you would have taken your eyes off of me and worshiped that person, right? That relationship, that marriage, that job, that thing. You'd have taken your eyes off of me, and I'm the Lord your God. You'll have no other gods before me, right? And we know sometimes there are things that we would really worship instead of God, right? We do it all the time. We do it with our music, we do it with our entertainment, we do it with our status, our image. That's what we do. And God is like, not on today. God is he's merciful, but he sometimes his mercy is in saying no. So I want you to keep that in mind, right? I want to say too, because I don't remember if I said it earlier, but I did say it already. But you want to know what God has for you? Stay in prayer with him. Stay in communion with him. Stay prayed up, right? Stay in his word. Read his word. Understand his characteristics and the character of God, right? It's like having a best friend. When you have a best friend, you know everything about them, right? I mean, most things, you know their character. It's when someone says something that's a little bit different, about it, because he wouldn't do that, right? Someone that doesn't know you can't vouch for you. I'm a vouch for God every time, right? In hopes that he can vouch for me at some point. So I hope that this helps somebody in their starting over, because when God says no, it's a painful start over, right? You can know in your heart of hearts, if you have your mind made up to do something, you say, okay, I know this is going to be hard, I'm going to go into, but when God shocks you with a no and that start over, you have no choice really, it's jarring. And when you don't have anybody to talk about with it, it becomes lonely, right? And it makes you feel like you're the only person in the world that's going through this. And over the years, I found out you're never the only person in the world going through. So, with that being said, I am so glad that you were here. Thank you for hanging with me, for listening to me go on and on. And I pray that this was helpful for you. I pray that this is something that you can draw on at some point. And so those are our 3 points. Obey, pray, and ask the questions. And that's it. Got to the end of another one. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your questions. Thank you. If you liked what you heard, share it, right? Maybe you have another friend who's grappling with this, right? If you need to watch it again, right? Because there's probably something that you missed because I talked a lot. And I want to encourage you, just keep trusting God, right? Keep trusting God. I can't say that enough. Keep trusting him, because if there's a no in something, that means that he really, really, really has your best interests at heart. Okay? And that's it. I love you with the love of Christ. I can't wait to see you next week. There's something else. There's something special. It's different than what I did here this week, but I think you're gonna like it. So this has been the Starting Over podcast with me, Lisa Yvette, and with God as our captain. If you like what you saw, share, like, subscribe. You know the drill. Share, like, share, subscribe. You know what to do. And that's it. I'll see you next week.